Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our last session in the digital training workshop series. So to move around the floor, I hope you guys are all at your table and you didn't have a trouble getting into the remote platform. I would like to take this time before we get started is to acknowledge that, as everybody knows, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it also takes a team to make these events successful. So I'd like to thank our hardworking team that's been behind the scenes for a month to get this going. So to Darren Hall, who's our Economic Development Officer at Community Futures Entre-Corp, Haley Gibson, who is the Digital and Marketing Specialist at Chinook Community Futures in Tabor, Lisa Galetke, who is our Digital and Marketing Specialist at Apex, and to Shannon Bergenster, who is our event coordinator and marketing specialist for Apex. Apex Alberta would like to acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in and cared for these lands for many generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We acknowledge and honor that we are situated on traditional lands of Treaty 7 and Treaty 4 territories, the traditional lands of the Siksika, Blackfoot tribe, the Kini, the Blood tribe, the Piikani, the Pecan tribe, the Stoney, Nakota, Tsuut'ina, Sarsi, as well as the Cree, Sioux, and the Sutu bands of the Ojibwa people. We also honor and acknowledge that we are on the homelands of the Métis Nation of Alberta within Region 3. So who are Community Futures and Apex? Community Future Organizations is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to building an economically diverse future for the communities of our beautiful region. Whether you need assistance developing your business strategy or idea, ongoing training to accelerate your startup growth, or financing up to $150,000, we're here to offer expert guidance and to cheer you on at every step of the way. Apex is the regional innovation network that supports the growth of innovation and technology orientated businesses in Southeast Alberta. Apex is a collaborative initiative between our three core providers: Community Futures Entre-Corp, Business Development, Medicine Hat College, and Alberta Innovates. To learn more about these supports, we can provide your company if you visit apexalberta.ca. Please note that we are recording this session. You may ask general questions in the chat box and questions for the speaker in the Q&A. We have an awesome speaker for you guys today in our final session, so let's get you all started. Today, I'd like to introduce to you to Daryl Julot from Digital Main Street. As the managing lead in charge of Digital Main Street, Daryl has extensive experience working within the public-private sector, partnerships, and developing outcome-based programming focused on technology, adoption for small business, and community building and planning. Through his work, Daryl has led multidisciplinary teams and helped create award-winning local economic development programs. A passionate small business advocate and youth mentor, Daryl is a seasoned entrepreneur. I want to invite Daryl to start his presentation. Thanks, Daryl.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for the warm introduction. Every time I speak at an event, I always remember that the lady who wrote my bio for me, I gotta give her a raise, because every time I hear it, doesn't quite make sense to me, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Before I get started, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to the Community Futures Chinook, Community Futures Entre-Corp, and Apex Alberta for having me, and then everyone else involved with the Going Digital series. Much appreciated. And I also just want to give a quick shout out to our partners at BusinessLink. For anyone who is aware or is not aware, BusinessLink and Digital Main Street have entered into a partnership to deliver the digital economy program across Alberta. So that program is now live. And some really exciting news as of like literally 6 minutes ago. The program website is now live. So if you go to dep.businesslink.ca, that will give you all the information on the program. There's some really exciting opportunities to provide support to your businesses and access some local resources. So we just encourage everybody to check that out. And then before I get started and I share my screen, I just want to reinforce super informal on the side. So I'm going to be checking the chat. I'm going to be checking the Q&A. Feel free to kind of drop stuff in there. I'll leave time at the end for questions, but I'll also try and kind of get to some of them in the middle. If you guys have thoughts on stuff that I'm presenting or whatever it might be. I see the chat right now, Jesse. Thank you for also acknowledging my good buddy Wilson here. This is my COVID friend. Probably I usually say the best gift, but in essence, the fact that the best gift I got over the last year was a volleyball that signifies Tom Hanks on an island. I don't necessarily know it's the best, but it's probably the most relevant. So I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint now. I just want to, if somebody can just give me a thumbs up or something in the chat that you guys can see this okay? Perfect. Awesome. So really what I wanted to talk about today was just high level, at Digital Main Street, and I'll give a quick introduction on, who I am and who we are. What are we seeing? What are the trends that we're seeing? How is the world changed outside of the obvious places? How is tech changing for small businesses? How is digital transformation changing? So it's a little bit of kind of like, looking in the last, 12 months, what's happened, and then trying to pull out the crystal ball and see, what does the next 12 months look like? So before that, Pat did a wonderful job. She probably did a better job introducing myself than I'm going to. But, at the end of the day, my day-to-day job is managing lead of Digital Main Street, a local nonprofit based out of Toronto. But we've been able to obviously grow to different parts of the country, Alberta being one of them. And, in the last 5 years, we've been able to help just north of 50,000 businesses. And that's all with digital transformation, websites, social media, content, cybersecurity, whatever it might be, just general support for small businesses in that space. Outside of DMS, I'm also the head of strategy for the largest retail publication in Canada, Retail Insider, and very, very big advocate for small businesses and youth mentorship, as Pat mentioned. And an entrepreneur myself, I have a number of consulting businesses outside of DMS. So I have I like to think an interesting viewpoint because I kind of play both sides of it where, I'm the small business support guy, but then sometimes I'm just the small business guy when I'm trying to, navigate government programs and, what's available from an assistance standpoint and all that kind of stuff. What are we going to talk about today? So I hinted at this, but, we're going to look at, this idea of why digital transformation is now table stakes. So that's really kind of, what's happened in the last year. Why is it more important now than ever? Why is it absolutely critical that you're doing it? It's I used to say it's no longer if, but when. Now it's not even when, it's how well are you doing it kind of thing. And then we'll look at some of the trends, that we've seen in this year and some of the ones that we're kind of projecting into next year. I've highlighted a couple of the big, topics, macro level. And I will just say I've put a lot of text in this deck, more than I normally would. I did that on purpose, so you don't have to worry about taking notes or writing anything down. I will share the deck afterwards, and then that way a lot of what I say and I cover will be on the slides as well. So if you decide to review them or whatever, it's all there. So I ask this question a lot in my day-to-day job, and it's funny because different people react different ways. And I always say, how is digital transformation accelerated? And, some people will be like, oh, well, it's gone up. Some people will be like, well, you idiot, it obviously has accelerated, tenfold because, the world has completely flipped upside down. But I think at the end of the day, really, what we've seen happen during the pandemic is, the spotlight on digital transformation for small businesses has just grown. It was always there and it was always prevalent. That's why we've done what we've done for the last 5 years. I think this has really just amplified it and just, just increased the pressure. And, looking at everything from, the exponential growth in e-commerce sales to, how the consumers are changing. And I'll talk a lot about that throughout this presentation because a lot of what we need to focus on now is customer retention, customer acquisition. How are you building relationships with your customers? How are you leveraging tech to do so? How are you engaging with them online? All of these things. And it all kind of plays into your overall strategy. Looking at the idea of personalization. How do you create a unique experience online? How do you ensure that, you're differentiating yourself from your competitors? All of these things are important. So I put a few stats down here because I always like to start with numbers. And this isn't meant to scare you or do any fear mongering or anything like that. It's really just meant to kind of get us all thinking, get us on the same page, and just kind of set the table for the rest of the discussion. So the first one is here from Forbes magazine. Growing businesses are 65% more likely to have accelerated their pace of tech investment over the last year. And I think that's probably the most straightforward. So basically saying, any business that was seeing growth last year was, significantly more likely to have accelerated their digital adoption. The one in the middle here, 93% of businesses, this was from a small business digitization survey done last summer. 93% identified they're more reliant on tech, and a third expect up to a half of their business to be digital. And I think I really like that one because that speaks to, both what's happened. So the 93% that have identified they're more reliant, but then a little bit into the future where you're seeing, almost a third of businesses are saying that 50% of their operations could be digital. And so it shows you that they're even thinking about, the impact that this is having on their business long-term, how they're going to continue to grow and scale and engage customers and all that. And just a mixed bag of everything. And then this last one, this is the funniest to me because we're going to talk a lot about customers today. So McKinsey put out a research report that said 75% of consumers in the last 18 months had tried a new behavior. And that could have been because of economic pressure, so price. So maybe they decided to start shopping on Amazon because of price. It could have been because their local store closed. It could have just been because they're changing their priorities. The example I always use when I present number 3 here is my wonderful mother. I love her to death. She is the furthest thing from tech savvy. I've set her up with, it's actually quite amusing. Like I always joke, Google's one of our partners at Digital Main Street. And I always joke that I have the perfect campaign for them because I've set my mother up over the last number of years with every piece of smart home technology you could imagine. Doorbells to Google home screens to smart plugs. And I've coordinated everything for her. She's got a little cheat sheet on how to use everything. And it's amusing because, you invest in smart home technology and actually what it's done is it's kind of made the home a lot dumber, a lot less sophisticated because there's so much trouble and there's so many issues and stuff like that. So, but again, my mom, as of a week ago, now has an Amazon Prime account and she's starting to shop on Amazon and she still is a big supporter of local and she always has been. So she's not changing that part of it. But like up until, a month ago, anytime she wanted anything, it was like, hey, Daryl, I can't find this locally. Like, can you find this online for me? And now she's just doing it herself. So it's like, I always use her as the barometer because she's a good pulse check for me on like what's kind of going on in the marketplace from a consumer standpoint. So it's quite fascinating that she's now made that complete switch and she's now able to do a lot of this stuff herself. And again, there's a lot of text. I do apologize, but I wanted to make sure that there was, some meat on the bones when you guys receive the deck and you're able to review it. Again, you're going to hear me say this a lot, but digital is now table stakes. It's no longer if or when. It's just how well are you doing it and how do you need to improve it and what do you need to do next, basically. And really kind of the 2 areas that I zeroed in on here were, how you can leverage it as a response to changing consumer behavior. And again, so looking at everything from, how online sales grew to how contactless payments are now a thing. Like I personally find it amusing, when I'm out now, if I'm grocery shopping or whatever, and like I pull out cash, which is not very often, maybe 2 times in the last 2 years. But the response I get, it's almost like somebody looks at me and it's like, what is that? Like, what am I supposed to do with that? I think we're just so used to contactless payments and tap and debit and credit and everything like that, or even paying with your phone, whatever it might be. How do you create unique loyalty opportunities? How do you continue to re-engage? All of these things are ways that you can leverage digital, and you should be leveraging digital right now. And that's why, again, I think because of the breadth of what you can cover with it, it's no longer if or when or how. It's just, how can I improve it? What do I need to do next? What can I do better? And then the other big one that we're going to talk a lot about today is leveraging data. So we live in a world where we capture more data in everything we do than ever before. And that's from things like, signing up to, accounts on, our I'll give you a good example. I just signed up yesterday to have my cell phone bill only sent to me online instead of paper. And of course, they want you to read 16 pages of terms and services and agreements and stuff. And I just, like everybody, scroll down. Yeah, I accept all the terms. And I'm sure somewhere in there, it says they can use my data for reporting or research or whatever. And that's just human nature. But again, even as a small business owner, you're capturing, point of sale data. You're capturing transactional data. If you've got a newsletter, you're capturing customer data. you've got your social media audience, and so you're capturing all this data, but it's now no longer just to capture it. It's what are you doing with it? How are you actioning it? How are you using it to understand the importance of, the customer data you're collecting? How are you using it to drive performance, increase operations, increase efficiencies, whatever it might be. Now it really is, okay, we spent years talking about, put a subscribe link on your site, start a newsletter. Now it's like, what do you actually do with that data? And how can you leverage it? And how can you actually make better operational decisions? So I love showing this picture. It also is kind of upsetting because of how true it is. But this is the generation we live in. We live in a generation where if, the Grim Reaper's coming to get us, the first thing we're saying is, I want to take a selfie because I need to post this on Instagram. And the reason I show this beside the word digital is now table stakes is this is your audience. I don't care what business you're in. I don't care if you sell clothing, if you're an HVAC technician, if you're a lawyer, an accountant, a chiropractor, it doesn't matter. This is the world you're dealing with. These are the people that are now your customers. This is how they interact with their businesses, their stakeholders, their friends, everybody else. And unfortunately, it's just the nature of what we have to accommodate. And so it's just, again, it's a bit of a satire, but I always like showing it. And then this one as well. So this one's scary. So what you're seeing here is actually, this was from a high school in the States. This was last summer it came out. And it was, I think it was a grade 12 class, fourth year, whatever they call it down there. This was a 45-minute class. And what the teacher did is she had every student put their phone on loud so you could hear it and put all their phones at the front. So nobody touched their phones the entire class. And then at the end of class, they tallied as a class the number of notifications they got on each platform. So this is grade 12. So what is that, 17, 18, depending on when your birthday is. And this is in a 45-minute class in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week. This is how many notifications they got. Like you look at text and Facebook and Instagram and emails, it's hundreds in one classroom. And again, I show this because it's important, because we're going to talk a lot today about customer experience and personalization and all of that. And if you look, a lot of people tell me, oh, well, Daryl, I do an email newsletter. It's great. I go, okay, but look at this. So in a 45-minute class of, what's a standard class size? 30 people for the sake of conversation. What do they have? Your 5, 10, 15. There's probably 250 emails there that class has received in a 45-minute window in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week. So when you're sending your newsletter at Tuesday at 10 a.m. because somebody told you that's the best time, you can bet 50 other companies are doing the exact same. What are you doing to stand out? Why am I going to open up your email instead of theirs? And what is it going to be about your email and your communication with me that's going to go, you know what? You're creating the unique personal experience. I feel that connection with the business and the brand, and I want to interact with you. All right. So now that I've kind of lectured you on how important this is, let's talk about some of the trends that we've seen this year. And again, ones that we think are here to stay. So we're going to do a bit of a deep dive, kind of just, one trend at a time. And just kind of talk about the what, why, and how, and, where we really see it going based on, data we've collected both quantitatively and qualitatively. So this idea of e-commerce being redefined. And, I start here and, shameless plug, as part of our digital economy program with BusinessLink, we are running a Shop Here powered by Google program, which does allow registered businesses in Alberta with less than 50 employees the opportunity to have an e-commerce store built at no cost. And I'll share some of these links at the end. But so we've been running this e-commerce program for about 18 months now, and we've had just over 20,000 businesses go through. So we've got a lot of data, as you can imagine, quantitatively on, what works and what doesn't, qualitatively based on feedback and, areas for improvement and, all of that. But what's most important is the very first line on this slide under what? E-commerce used to be for retail. You ask people 5 years ago about e-commerce, well, I don't sell shirts, or I don't sell shoes, or I don't sell whatever. There was a very linear connection here where it was, okay, retail, e-commerce, and that was it. It made a lot of sense. Darren, thank you for sharing that link. The only thing I'm going to do is if you can copy that URL and just put -AB at the end, because we do have an Alberta specific landing page, and I just want to make sure that they get captured correctly. Mm-hmm. Now you look at it and e-commerce is everything now. The businesses that we've put through the program, we have artists, we have, local artisans, we have people that are starting a side hustle. We have chiropractors, physiotherapists, lawyers, dentists, doctors. And people always go, well, Daryl, they don't sell anything. I said, yeah, but you have to remember, e-commerce isn't about selling a physical item. E-commerce is about transacting online. And so what I mean by that is, yes, if I decide to buy this shirt from Darren, yeah, I'm transacting online. I made a purchase. But if at the same time I decided to book an appointment with Lisa, who's my chiropractor, online, I'm still commit, like, you know, that's still a transaction happening online. So I think as a business owner, you know, and again, I don't know the scope of the business owners on the call, but, you know, regardless of the industry you're in, I would be looking at e-commerce as a way to either sell products, sell service, you know, book appointments, whatever it might be, sell educational classes. If you're a business coach, anything. But again, think of it with that lens. It's not about selling a product necessarily. It's about creating a place for a transaction to occur online. And for your business, that might be selling a product, but for another person's business, it may be booking an appointment to come in and receive service or treatment or whatever it might be. Why is this important? I mentioned at the start of this call the hockey stick curve for e-commerce growth. If you look at the rate that e-commerce grew over the last 18 months, it is truly a hockey stick curve. It's exponential. There's no linear kind of like it's just going like this. It went boom. And, you know, I mean, I think it's to be expected. Lockdown, shutdowns, you know, there's really only one way to engage with businesses and purchase and, you know, make transactions. But what we're seeing now is that it's not going back to normal. This was not a temporary thing. It's not like people went and, you know, learned how to shop on e-commerce like my mom and did all this stuff. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we're open back up. Like, forget that. I'm just going to go back out. It's almost like a drug. They get used to the convenience, right? Oh, I can buy this in my house at 11 o'clock at night. I don't have to go out. Why wouldn't I? Or, you know what, I can message this business through their Facebook chat messenger bot. I can get the answers I need. Why would I phone them? And these are all the things that go into how you leverage digital for your business, because it's so much more, again, than just having a place for that customer to come and buy. It's what are you doing to drive them there? And, you know, how are you making that experience unique for them? Are you offering them discounts? You know, is it a product they can't get anywhere else? Apologies. And then I just re-put that stat around, you know, McKinsey and 75% of consumers, because it's incredibly important that, you know, we're seeing 3 out of every 4 consumers now changing the way they operate. So that means 3 out of every 4 people who were traditionally going to say, no, I'm not going to shop online, I'm only going to go in store, are now changing their mind. And when you extrapolate that across, you know, how many consumers, maybe even in your city or province or country, if you're shipping globally, like that's a lot of people. And if we're not staying in tune with that, and we're not changing the way that we operate as business owners and entrepreneurs and creating unique experiences and finding ways to leverage digital for our own benefit when it comes to this, that's where we're going to fall behind. Sorry. And this is probably, I know this is the second trend, but I think it depends. I flip-flop on what's the most important. This is definitely up there in terms of, because it encompasses so many things. So, you know, I put here, customers want what they want, when they want, how they want it. And I don't think there's a sentence that can better describe us as consumers. And even for the business owners on this call, like think about when you're shopping at another store or business, like you're, you know, when you are a consumer, this is absolutely true. You know, we are very greedy, very selfish consumers. And, you know, we've been conditioned that way because people have made it easier for us. And, you know, again, whether it's Amazon or the small guy or Walmart or whoever it is, you can go on and you can buy commodity products and have them shipped in an hour. Or, you know, you can go and, you know, instead of going into the store at the mall down the street, the local store, I can buy it online and have it shipped here tomorrow. Like, why would I waste it, right? And that might not be what I want. But the concept here is that I want to be able to do what I want when I want it. And it's the same for all these other consumers. So as business owners, we have to build our strategy with that in mind. And, you know, this can include things like speaking to a chatbot. So if anyone's ever been on a website that says, you know, little thing pops up, hey, how can I help you? Blah, blah, blah. Again, people love those. And you see the stat here, 63% say they prefer messaging. And there's some obvious benefits. It's available 24/7, instant response, and more. And then there's also people who just, you know, there's going to be people who are uncomfortable. They would much prefer just to type a message to a robot and get the answer than to pick up the phone and sit there for 20 minutes and talk to somebody. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with any of the above, right? I think it's just, you know, and again, none of this is saying, to reiterate, like, don't get rid of your customer service person or team or strategy and put a chatbot in place. It's not a either or. It's how can one support the other. And, you know, maybe by putting the chatbot in place, it eases the burden on the number of calls your customer service team gets. So maybe they spend more time on the sales floor or whatever your business model is. And again, this last stat here, you know, why is personalization important in everything you do? 90% of marketers say that the future of email marketing is personalization. And the reason they say that is because 74% of people are frustrated when they receive non-personal emails. So think about, like, from that lens, if you're just sending a generic newsletter every week and you're not focusing on, you know, segmenting your data, or sending customers unique offers, or sending them something on their birthday, or whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be any of those. It's just something personal to them. Every 3 out of 4 people that receives that email are probably not going to open it because they see it and go, oh, it's just another generic email. And we've all been there. We all have tons of spam. We all have ones that we won't open. It's just human nature. But then the other one that's interesting is you look at this one, almost 50% of consumers, and it's proven statistically, spend more money when they have a personal experience. So now you step back and you go, okay, well, it's going to cost me a few dollars, obviously, to implement a chatbot and reimagine my online user experience and how they can transact on my website and all that. But if there's proof that by doing that, statistically speaking, that half my customers are going to spend more money in the long run, it's it's going to pay off 100-fold, right? So I would just, the lesson I would take away around personalization again is, don't only ever think of yourself as the business owner. Put yourself in that consumer's shoes. When you're at another business, when you're at the grocery store tonight, or when you go to get your haircut tonight, or whatever it might be, and you are the consumer, think about it from that lens, because you're gonna start to understand the ways you can change your business. And whether that's, again, from making sure you're sending out personalized emails to just creating a unique experience when they walk in. I'll give you a great example. One of my favorite stores in the world, based out of here in Toronto, unfortunately had to close down just because of COVID. They're only purely online, but before COVID, they sold t-shirts. Actually, funny enough, he sold the shirt I'm wearing, and I promise you I didn't plan that. But they sell t-shirts. Wonderful guy, wonderful designer, wonderful business owner. Not super personal. I wasn't getting messages from him on Instagram saying, hey, Daryl, what's up? Want to hang out this weekend? But he created a space where, you could go into the store downtown, and he would actually be working on his designs in the store. So you felt that connection with the brand, because when you walked in there, you could buy a shirt, but you'd actually see him planning for the future, and you'd get a sneak peek at the design that maybe he's working on for next fall or whatever it is. And so that was very unique because, it just kind of happened. And it's funny, when you talk to him, he goes, well, Daryl, I didn't do this to create an experience for customers. He goes, I just did this because there was no room in the back, and I just figured I might as well sit out here and show people how I make my shirts. And it's funny because I told him, I said, but like, you are doing that for the customer. You may not think you are, but again, you said it. You want them to be able to see what you're doing. You want them to be able to feel that affinity with the brand, and you want to be able to build on that. And I think, just the smallest things like that, as long as somebody feels like they're, you're doing something just for them, or you're creating an experience that's different from everybody else, you're going to win every day of the week. Back to our good friend, Mr. Data. So what are we talking about when we talk about leveraging data for decision making? Again, I talked about it in my first few slides there. You have more access to data now than you ever have, ever. Through whatever channels you're capturing it, it doesn't matter. You have more data than you've ever had. Every channel you add just adds that. You don't have a newsletter, add one, you'll have more data. You have a newsletter, add a tracking pixel on your Facebook, whatever, you'll get more data. It's impossible to not capture data now as a business owner. It's easier now than ever. What are you doing with it? And again, like, you can have a spreadsheet. I could send you a spreadsheet right now with, a bunch of very, very relevant data. But if you don't know how you're going to action that data, then it's useless to you. You might as well not be collecting it. But when you look at it, at its core, that data can help you. I put it here: become better, more efficient, and provide a better customer experience. So it doesn't always have to be about the sexy stuff. It doesn't have to be about the front-facing customer stuff. It could help you make better operational decisions. It could help you become more efficient in terms of how your staff work with customers. It could be a million different ways, but that's what you need to be thinking about now. Is, now that I'm capturing this data, or I'm starting to capture it, I'm thinking about capturing it, what am I actually going to do with it? And why is this important? You look at that data and the insights and stuff like that. How can you take that data to understand customer buying habits? So when you can compare, your transactional data with your social data and everything else, and your web traffic and everything, how can you paint that picture? How can you get a sense into their buying habit? How can you leverage that data to boost customer acquisition and retention? So is it, streamlining your marketing campaigns? Is it identifying you need to be marketing to a different demographic because they're big supporters of yours and you may not have known it? Is it, from a retention standpoint, is it creating a loyalty initiative? Is it sending them an email on their birthday saying, hey, Daryl, happy birthday, here's 15% off with a unique code, whatever it might be. But again, it's at the same time, you can drive product and service innovation. You're going to capture data on what's working, what's not. Do you need to make adjustments here? Do you need to reconsider this product or this SKU? Do you need to consider adjusting the service? But the piece that I think often goes the most overlooked is this automate business process standpoint. And so this is what I talk about with when it comes to like operational efficiency and stuff like that. Are there ways you can put some automation in place here? Just to take over some of the mundane tasks, not to replace employees, not to cut people's jobs or anything like that. But is there a way that you can just kind of build out a robust strategy internally that automates a lot of the grunt work, or automates a lot of the work that can be automated, so that your staff and you can focus on other things? Now, whether that's on the sales floor with customers, whether that's redeveloping the website, whether that's making sure that you're fulfilling e-commerce orders, again, what you do at that time is really irrelevant. It's just how can you leverage the data to make better business decisions and drive process? Because maybe you have a process in place and then you look at the data and it goes, well, we don't actually need this because people don't care. And then how important is it? So again, a stat from McKinsey here. Data combined with analytics can yield 15 to 20% growth in revenue. So by you leveraging your data and your analytics and you using that to tell the story and analyze, how you're engaging with your customers, you could be looking at 15 to 20% an increase in revenue, just purely based on having a better understanding of the who, what, why, of how you're engaging your customers as a business owner. So, and then this is probably the least sexy, but I could argue, just in terms of repercussions, it could be the most important. So cybersecurity is a massive play for Digital Main Street right now. We're doing a lot of work in the space to make sure we bring education and opportunity to small businesses right across the country. And, the reason being, again, you look at the why, a lot of what I'm talking about is digital and the cloud and, files and remote storage and servers and all this. And if you're anything like my mom or, anyone else in my family who's a bit of an older business owner, right away, it's like, well, I'm not going to do that because people are just going to steal my information. And guess what? Unfortunately, we live in a world where they are going to try to steal your information, whether it be personally identifying information, credit card transaction data, you name it. And I would ask you to put up your hand, but I know that every single person on this call is going to put up their hand if I say, who has gotten an email from a company or been actively part of like a data breach. It happens all the time. And the biggest companies in the world can't protect it. So we have our work cut out for us as small business owners. But again, it's I put it here. It's not only do employees risk personal data breach, but also proprietary company information. So if they're getting access to your SharePoint, they can get proprietary company information along with your employee data. Like, there's some really, really powerful and scary stuff that people can get their hands on, which is why this is so important. And then MasterCard Canada, who's another one of our founding partners, they shared some really interesting stats with me, and you see them here. Like, they paint quite a bad picture, but in a good way, because I think what it's telling us is there's a lot of room for opportunity. So 50%, so 1 out of every 2 businesses has experienced a cyber attack. Now, if we go by that ratio, I'm just looking at the attendance here in terms of everyone. So there's 8 of us right now. So that means that 4 of us have experienced a cyber attack. Now, whether that holds true to every single scenario, obviously it's not going to, because there's going to be outliers, and maybe nobody in this group does, but then there's another group of 8 somewhere where all 8 of them have kind of 70% of all cyber attacks are small businesses. 70%. And their definition of small business is under 100 employees. So 7 out of every 10. And that's ironic, because the only ones we hear about are the big ones. Oh, Home Depot got hacked. Oh, Best Buy got hacked. Oh, Wealthsimple got hacked. Oh, this company in the States got hacked. And it's all the multinational, $1 billion companies. But 70% of these attacks are small business owners. And what's even more telling is 84% of businesses tell us that they don't feel confident in their ability to deal with a cyber attack. Whether it's something as simple as hacking your email or, taking down your website, whatever it might be, they don't feel completely, again, comfortable dealing with it. And then 80% of breaches included PII. Pardon me. So 80% of these breaches included identifying information. Mm-hmm. So it could be, again, email, it could be phone number, it could be first name, last name, address, whatever it might be. But that's the stuff that you want to make sure that we are not making easily accessible. We're putting checks and balances in place, because at the end of the day too, if you're running an organization or a business and you're the victim of a hack and there's issues, if you can't prove that you had the right measures in place, there could be repercussions for you as well. So it's incredibly important just to think about, again, where is your business at from a digital scale? What are you doing? What checks and balances do you have in place? And is there anything you need to be concerned about? So I cannot stress that one enough. I know it's not the sexy one. I know it's not your website, your e-commerce, your social, but this is the one that's going to, again, keep you in business, keep you out of legal trouble, and really allow you to have a strategy in place that's going to protect you, protect your clients, and protect the data. Another good one. It's quite interesting and quite polarizing, because I know a lot of us advertise on Facebook, and Facebook's one of our partners. They're a wonderful platform. DMS is a very large advertiser on Facebook, so I'm not saying what I'm about to say in a negative sense, but it is just, the numbers are the numbers. Looking at how platforms are changing. So I'm sure anyone here who's advertised on any of the platforms, Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it doesn't matter. You all hear the word algorithm, and you hear about the algorithm changing and how it's, they're facilitating and prioritizing content. I think it's all a good point. But when you look at Facebook in the world we live in, 41% currently of Facebook's users are over the age of 65. That's reported data. It's public. You can Google that. That's not me just making that up. So, when you look at that, and I even put in here, combined with Facebook's notorious data breach, they unfortunately were one of the victims of this, but they weren't alone. There was, a lot of Fortune 500 companies, a lot of very large companies that were at risk. But again, you can see they've kind of unintentionally created this direct correlation with that younger demographic. There is that, I write here, the less likely they are to even use Facebook. I don't know that I'd go to that extreme, because I have a lot of friends that still use it. I know family members just to keep track of family pictures and stuff. But I would say that, this has definitely created a correlation where, generally speaking, people are less likely to use Facebook, maybe not a specific generation. But it's something to consider, because if you're advertising on Facebook and, you hear something like, well, 41% of their users are over 65, and I know that I only care about the 18 to 24 demographic, it might not be the best place for me to advertise. And that's just one of those things where we're trying to stay on top of the algorithm with our partners, but what does the rest of it look like? And how can you do your part? And how can we make sure that, you're not relying on one or the other, you're not wasting money, all of the above. And then again, why is it important? Think of social networking, what Facebook used to be in all these other places, as no longer just a place to find the lead. So, a couple of years ago, it would be, okay, well, there, let me run an ad. Let me get people to like my post. Let me get some, some signups here. But now you almost have to think about it as a place to convert them as well. You look at things like Shopify, where they've got Facebook shops now. Oh, I'm really sorry. Or you look at TikTok, who announced an integration with Shopify and a few other partners, and you can actually buy product directly on the platform. Instagram shopping's been out for a number of years now. But again, it really comes down to, is your market active on social media? And do you offer products that can be sold online? Those are going to be the two big things, or services, or whatever it might be. But it might give you the options you need to potentially look at cutting out the middleman, whether you have a marketing firm or whatever, and taking control back. And I'm not saying don't work with local vendors, everything like that. I'm fully supportive of, the entire ecosystem working together. But I know there are going to be use cases where, you're going to want to work by yourself. Or maybe you feel like you got a contract that's a little too heavy for you, and you want, a reason to be able to go back to them and get out of it. It could be any of the above. But I think, it's again, how does social change? What is changing on social media that's led us to doing this? Other trends to be aware of. So I didn't want to do full pages on these. I just wanted to give you a quick touch base and, a couple lines on some of the ones that I'm seeing come up almost daily, if not multiple times a day. So augmented reality, the first one, straightforward. That's, again, think of like the Oculus VR, the headset you put on, you see things in 3D. It's like you're there, everything like that. There's some relatively real life use cases now. You think of, again, the example here, eliminates risk by allowing customers to add a product into a real setting and see how it'll look. A lot of very unique use cases for, the fashion industry, whether it's makeup or clothing and stuff like that around augmented reality. Think of like Snapchat with their filters, but from a professional standpoint, I know Snapchat is doing a ton of work in the space. And then I messed up at the start, putting a headset on and stuff, that would be virtual reality as opposed to augmented. But all the same, and I think you're going to continue to see how augmented reality can play, a role in this, but also combining it with commerce, because, the end game here is eventually, I'll use Snapchat as the example. You open Snapchat, you're able to actually go on and put a filter of, those Ray-Ban sunglasses you want on your face. And then you find your pair, and then guess what? All of a sudden, boom, well, I want to buy these. Okay, one click, boom, checks out of your store, and you do everything in the same platform. Even though it functions on different rails in the back end, from a consumer standpoint, you're able to do everything on the front end. And that's what's most important, is creating a unique, simple, easy to use user experience in whatever form that takes. It's just like, again, and you see here, under artificial intelligence, I just said it offers the power of customization, segmentation, click tracking, retargeting, etc. And you can utilize it to help deliver real-time personalized ads. And I think that's also highly important, just depending on the nature of the business. So I wanted to wrap up there. I wanted to leave 10 to 15 minutes for questions, conversation. I didn't want to ramble too long. I will be sharing the full deck. So again, you guys will receive a copy of that. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. Or I know I'm supposed to potentially pop back out to table 1. I'm not 100% sure, Pat.
No. So thank you very much for speaking today on digital transformation. I don't see any questions in the Q&A or in the chat. So I guess what I'm going to say is thanks for joining us, everybody who came out today. We hope you enjoyed this Going Digital workshop series that we put on for you. If you'd like to hang around and have some questions for Daryl, please just head on over to table 1. That's where you're going to be finding him. I just want to let you guys know that stay tuned to all of our social media channels, because our team is working hard again behind the scenes to bring you some more training starting in January of 2022. So thanks again. And if you want to stay and network with each other, that is great. We're going to go out of present mode now and back into our networking floor. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.